Earlier on today, somebody was asking about Efinity, and obviously I gave them a reply on Discord, and I said, look, I don't really want to be talking about pros and cons regarding any project, because obviously if it has a wrong outcome to the point where somebody might take it the wrong way, so I didn't want to really say anything. However, I am going to drop something here regarding Efinity, just to kind of make you understand what is the project, right? So technically it will be like a bit of a pro and con, but in my own kind of way. So I'm not going off the bat of what the project is, because a project is whatever the project says it is, right? So that's what it is. These are goals that they need to achieve, roadmaps basically. But when it comes to us users, or say even if we're going to be investors in it, like buying tokens or whatever, that's a different story, right? And so for us, we have to understand it in a completely different perspective, that okay, as an investor, is it a good opportunity or not? Should we invest or should we not, right? One of those kind of things. So that's what we look at. So for me, you know, I looked at the greater, bigger picture of the company. Obviously, Efinity. Where does Efinity come from, right? What is it, right? So EFI. So we're going to talk about this a little bit today. Now, to understand Efinity, you have to understand the engine coin, right? And its roots, where it started, what it wants to do, what it wanted to be, and the kind of achievements it achieved, right? So these are the things you need to understand. Of course, engine was built on Ethereum, you know, and engine wanted to be one of the first NFT marketplace kind of a place. They wanted to do NFTs. That's what engine was, like, you know, to integrate it with gaming. And to do fungible and non-fungible NFTs, right? So it was quite funny because they didn't classify NFT as a non-fungible token only. They said there can be two types of tokens that you can have. So what they're talking about is like more like in-game currencies and XYZ. So that's what they based it on. They launched in 2017. Work was done prior to that. I think it took about 3 or 4 years before that, where they first time mentioned it. They got the investments, they did an ICO, they launched a product in 2017. So it's fairly old, like, you know, almost 6 years old, you can say. And yeah, they've done great. Since the launch, they've done absolutely fine. I don't see any issues in it. I'm a massive fan of engine. I do hold some engine way back from the days, so nothing fresh, like nothing in 2020 or 2021. Way back from the days, I do hold some engine coin. Not much, but just enough, right? So you got to look at that. And then obviously we have Polkadot, right? And I have to add this on. So you got engine and you got Polkadot. Now engine itself is relying on Ethereum, for example, as a blockchain. And then obviously they've been doing some other works and this and that. But they need a blockchain. So they want to do this where they want to be cross-chain compatible. Now, like, you can either put the money down and build an infrastructure and build your own blockchain to do this, or you can build a sub blockchain, more like a you know, just a basic blockchain on top of another one, right? So that's what they did. They thought, well, why don't we just launch on the Polkadot parachain as Efinity, right? So it's actually the same project, right? It's engine itself, right? So Efinity is engine. This is what you have to understand, right? It is not, it doesn't claim to be anything different. The only different thing about it is it's going to be cross-chain compatible. And when they launched it on Polkadot parachains, they launched it with a different brand. They launched it with a brand Efinity. That's all it is, right? So it is actually the same thing. Of course, there's some negative to this, right? So for me, the negative that I would look at is, you're an established brand. Why would you launch a different brand for the same product if you're already successful, unless you are wanting to raise more funds, more money, you know, more like another round of funding basically for the same thing, because it's going to be the same engineers, same everything. So that's how I look at the negative side of things. Maybe this is just a cash grab. Maybe you're trying to take some money. Now there are a few points that I've made on Discord, and I said, look guys, it could potentially be a rug pull, or could potentially go to the moon. Now let me explain what I mean about rug pulls, right? So when we talk about rug pulls, we mostly talk about scam coins, right? Projects that come up and they project you the moon, they project you everything, and actually they're not doing anything. All they're doing is just raising funds and taking those money and trying to drag it as long as possible, so you don't notice what's really going on. Eventually, most people give up hope, other people become bag holders, and no one really talks about it until they can find an excuse or some reason for them to just stop doing anything, and no one even talks about it, right? So they just kind of vanish in the greater space of the crypto sphere. You know, we're coming close to like 22,500 coins, so you can disappear. Believe me, you can disappear within that. So that's what they do. They just want to disappear, vanish. So that's a rug pull. That's what happens, right? Cash grab, basically. But in the case of Efinity, in the case of Engin, I don't think that's the case, right? The sole reason I don't think it's the case because there's greater partnerships out there, and it's a real product, right? As I said, it is Engin, right? Efinity is Engin, except they've attempted to build it on somebody else's blockchain, and the reason is because that particular blockchain, the DOT ecosystem, is cross-chain compatible. That's the whole plan of this. It's like, why build a blockchain that's only native to you? Why not build a blockchain that can communicate literally with any blockchain? You know, so they're not talking about EVM compatibility. They're saying, well, build whatever, but then you can plug it into this ecosystem, which can then communicate with everything else, right? And it's a bit different compared to like AVAX, who does the C chain. So they also have multiple chains as well, but it's completely different because AVAX, you can just go in and do it now. But what it does is it's using the same languages, right? So, you know, in order to connect, that's all it's doing, nothing more. But you're still using, like, you know, like when you do certain things on AVAX, it's giving you like, for example, like the way we do a wrapped Ethereum or wrapped Bitcoin. So that's what it's doing. It's just wrapping everything up and then just punching out another thing, and it's holding it. So that's what it is. But this one, technically, the idea is it should work natively, and that's the whole key here. It's like you should be able to natively transact with a blockchain, communicate, move funds over, and this and that. So that's what it is, right? So that's the only purpose for them to launch on Polkadot, and as far as I can see, yes, to raise probably some more funds. Did they have to? I don't think so, but they did. If they did, great, but they haven't succeeded anyway, so it doesn't matter. So the Polkadot parachains, Efinity has failed. That particular auction has failed. Of course, the closing date for that is still in December 2023, so, you know, anything could happen by then. Now, another question was raised was, why is it pumping? Well, this is the other thing. If it doesn't pass the Polkadot parachains right now, it doesn't mean anything. The reason is that parachains is only for the particular slots that are going to be launching first, and it's not the end of these auctions, because there's going to be plenty more. So you got to understand how the wording and the phrasing has been, right? So they called it Polkadot parachains slot auctions. That's pretty much similar to how an ICO drop does ICO listing, right? So you go up there and you list your ICO and you say, look, this is my project, I'm trying to raise some funds, or probably, here you go, for the normies, right? A Kickstarter. So you go and you say, I want to do a Kickstarter, this is how much money I want to raise, and can we meet that target? So all that's happened with Efinity is the goal they set, they didn't reach that goal. So by not reaching that goal, they got kicked off. That's all it is, right? So it's just like a Kickstarter. When you go and say, I want to raise $2 million, and you're shy of like $100,000, so you raise 1.9, but you're shy of 100,000, and you hit that date, well, all the investors get their money back and you don't get the money. So this is what it is. You're not going to get free money for whatever, right? So that's what's happened. So did Efinity take the money? I don't think so. They didn't take the money, but they probably did it for that. So there is some positives and some negatives, because they didn't really have to do it, but they did. Great, whatever. It creates hype, buzz, whatnot. But ultimately, did they does that affect the project? Not entirely. The project can still be building. Maybe they didn't get funding from there, and maybe now they can finally pull the money from Engin and actually do it. It's because they do have some significant funding. They've partnered with Microsoft. They've partnered with Samsung, right? They're doing, you know, good things. And when you're talking about Samsung and Microsoft, they're not your small average thing. They've even partnered with BMW, for God's sake, right? And you got to think, it's like these are some of the largest companies in their own respective industries, right? So clearly they're doing something, and they have a reputation. So they're not going to do a rug pull. That's one thing I just want to make sure that you understand. They're definitely not going to do a rug pull. And from my point of view, the way I see it is, you know, they failed, but the project is still alive and it can succeed, right? It doesn't require Polkadot right now. Maybe in the future, they want to go back to the slot auctions, they would do it. So again, if they go back again, all they're doing is a second Kickstarter for the normies, right? So understand this, it's only a Kickstarter, nothing else. And then, sorry, it's going to be a bit noisy, but I'm just driving, that's why. But so it's going to be like a second Kickstarter if they wanted to raise some capital. However, if they don't want to raise capital, they have enough funding, then it's all good. The project can still carry on. This project can still be built. Now, let's get to another point of all of this, right? So they're building a NFT specific, right? So it's more like NFC dominant. Let's call it dominant. So they're going to have more NFTs on this particular blockchain than anything else, because every other blockchain has a token associated with it. This one also does, and they're mostly for token and smart contracts and what. That's what we've got now. But they want to build something which is cross-chain compatible NFT. That's a great idea. And I think a few other projects are also working on this. But sometimes we've got to look at certain things and say, well, hold on, their idea is great. It's a very unique thing. If they do pull it off, I think that should be great. That means you can mint on a cheap blockchain and then sell on a more expensive blockchain or wherever the hype is, right? You can move your assets over one blockchain to another. I think the idea is fantastic. A lot of people are also attempting this right now on other blockchains. So it might just happen. We don't know when, but it could happen. But then I also ask, is there actually a need for it, right? When you're looking at NFTs and when you're looking at all of these things, is there actually a need for it? Because the market is, again, being oversaturated. There's just too many projects out there. I mean, every single exchange has their own exchange NFT platform. And one thing I've noticed is those NFTs cannot be sold anywhere else. I've noticed, like, for example, you've got Ocean, what's it called? Like, the name's just gone out of my head now anyway. So you go and you got other NFT marketplaces like, Rarible and XYZ. And why is that name just going to me? Something Ocean, it's just completely gone out of my head, completely blank right now. Anyway, so you've got these big Goliaths out there basically. Again, they're kind of blockchain specific, or maybe they have one or two connections that you can work with, but very compatible only through the EVM compatibility. Other than that, there's not really much happening. So the question is, do you really need one? And in my opinion, I think we do. We definitely need something that integrates everything, right? That integrates everything. All NFTs can be cross-chain compatible. That's what we need. So if Efinity is building that, then for that reason, I'm still supporting Efinity, right? So again, this is not a financial advice. I do not endorse anything here. All I'm just trying to say is what kind of a negativity that I think that Efinity did bring. So for me, if Efinity is the same company as Engin, did they really need to go and raise funds? That was a question I asked. I don't think they had to, but if they did so, great. And if they failed from raising that funds, does it impact the project? Absolutely not. If the project then carries on and builds something and actually creates this real product where we can have cross-chain compatible, right, assets where we can mint on one and send to another, by all means, this is what we need. We need one marketplace. We just need the eBay or the Amazon, right, of NFTs, right? Where anybody could go in, mint it on any blockchain and launch it. Now, whatever I've said up to now, right, sounds all great, all the negatives aside, looking at all the positive things, but the question still remains is, are they actually going to build it, right? So that's where it all leads to. Then this is one of the reasons why I always say, like, sometimes on these projects I say 50-50, guys. 50-50 solely because they could be successful and they might not be. They might not build it. Somebody else might build it before them. You don't know. But I'll tell you what would really work, and I don't think we need to even raise capital for this or anything like this. So if there is any developers out there who are watching this, go ahead, take this idea and go and deal with it. If you look at 1inch is not a decentralized exchange, but it has functionalities. Obviously, it's an aggregator. I think there's an opportunity for people to build an NFT aggregator where it can connect to multiple blockchains and actually have it all displayed in one place, and you can then plug whatever wallet you want, and it will show you the native NFTs available on that blockchain, and you have access to buying this, right? That changes everything, right? So, I mean, there's an opportunity there. So do we really need a blockchain? I don't think so. But you know, if it does what it wants to do, I think it's great, right? You know, for me, the way I think it's an evolution, and it's something that we do have a space for in this market. Something new, right? It's definitely, I do like that, but as I said, there are opportunities out there where you can just create an aggregator and do this as well. So ultimately, do we need it? Do we not? We don't know, right? So there are positives, there are negatives, and these are not pros and cons. None of that business is here. I'm not going to give you any of those things. So do your own research, and obviously, you know, don't take it based on my opinions, because all of this is just my opinions, nothing else. I'm not giving you financial advice, right? But that's how I see certain things. I'm like, okay, I need to make logical sense of this. Does it make sense? Does it not? And a lot of these things just didn't make any sense to me, or a lot of things did make sense to me. So I said, well, hold on, I'm going to have to weigh the project based on that. So weighing the project, regardless it's pumping or not, or it dumps or not, I don't give a damn about that. I have a significant amount that I want to hold of Efinity, right? And I've had it from some of the auction deals that I've had, right? Or some of the freebies that I received. Am I going to top it up? I have topped it up before, but right now, am I going to top it up? I don't think so. I'm not going to top up anymore, but I'm not going to dump either. I'm just going to hold it, because end of the day, majority of that portfolio is freebies, and I don't see a harm in just keeping that. You know, of course, as we progress, the more news that comes out, the more information comes out, the more of that, let's say, the roadmap or the barriers that they have, like, you know, those kind of little baby steps that they have to take to get to the final version. The more we progress, the more bullish I will become, and then I might take a chance on it, right? If that makes sense, right? Because other than that, I don't see it right now. I don't see that I need to buy or top up anymore. I think I have sufficient enough. You know, what I have is absolutely fine. I'm not complaining about that. So yeah, I mean, that's all I wanted to talk about. Other than that, market's looking very good. I am actually observing the market right now on my car. Market's looking very good. I just wanted to actually add this on as well, right? So I was looking at how the market's been playing around, like year to year, right? And it's quite important how to, you know, if you look at the pattern that we have year to year. So one thing I've noticed is 2020, we had in January a 29% pump. So just make a note of this, right? So 2020, right, we had a 29% pump in January. In 2021, we had a 15%, almost actually 14%, 14.5% pump in January. Okay, the only time we were bearish was in 2022 January, but of course that was because we were entering a bear market. So we had a 16% or almost 17% negative during that particular month, year to year. Now, last month, in 2023, we had a 39.63%. That's almost 40% pump in a single month. That's a clear indication that the bear market done what it had to do by the end of 2022, right? It's a clear indication. And 40% pump could be a fake out, but the point is it's done it. It's a green month, right? Which is a great thing. And then we've entered February, and I also see a certain pattern. So again, I'm going to go through year to year. What I see is in February 2022, we had a 8%, sorry, 2020, we had an 8.6% negative, right? So it was a red month. Great. And then after that, we see 2021, we had a 36% pump. We had a 36% pump in 2021, and then we had a 12% pump in 2022, right? And then this month, obviously, we have 1.1% so far, but again, we've only been a few days in this month, so I'm not really counting that. But if we move forward to March, and then we start seeing this pattern, right? We see 2020 in March, we had a bloody month of 25%, right? Then in 2021, it was a positive month of 29%, right? So we can clearly see that 2021 was the peak of the bull run, right? This is when we had the blow off top, because if you look at the months, you had a 14.5%, a 36%, and then another 29%, right? So when you're compounding that, you can see how many percentage it is. I know it looks a bit different, but we did have some massive pumps there. So, you know, we can see that we were in the peak of the bull market. But it's quite fascinating. I mean, when you look at the 2022 right now, how it's kind of looking like that. So I need a confirmation, and I've said to everybody as well, I said, guys, I'm going to be waiting until the middle of February. There are some coincidences that we mentioned, but I'm not even going to talk about those. But I'm looking at 2023 February, middle of February, for how the market reacts for me to enter this bull market or not. And when I'm saying enter, I'm not talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum. By the way, I'm not talking about any of those, right? Those top two, I'm not talking about it. What I'm talking about is everything else, right? So all the altcoins. I know a lot of people have talked about how the altcoin season has probably started. Yes, probably has, but what you have to understand is this particular season has started with because we've had the Bitcoin and Ethereum pump recently, right? So we've had the Bitcoin and Ethereum pump, the profit's got to go somewhere, so it's now filtering into the alts, which does create an altcoin season. So yes, 100% right, it is an altcoin season, but only a momentary one, because the markets on the other two are overbought. So sometimes when you need to cool down the market, right, say, okay, look, Bitcoin is overbought, everything else is oversold. So how do we create equilibrium? In order to create equilibrium, maybe we should start pumping the others to create a balance, and let Bitcoin and Ethereum rest for a bit, if that makes sense. So I think that's what's really happening right now. There's going to be a correction in the major cryptocurrencies, but that correction only gives us a baseline, a breathing space for us to start the actual pumps, right? And when I'm talking about those pumps, we might see pumps close to, I won't say similar, I would say not exactly the same as January, where we had the 39%. I don't think we're going to have that, but we could easily see a 10, 15, 20% pump per month, right? And those are good things, right? You got to understand. Now also, don't look at the numbers. When we say 39%, I know like, or 40%, you're assuming that, oh, what's 40%? It's not really much. No, it's a lot, because we went from 15k to 25k, so that's 40%. That's a lot of money, right? If we do another 40% from where we are right now, right, which is 23k, then that leads us all the way almost close to 40k. So do you have to understand the maths, right? 40% based on today's price, not yesterday's price. So overall, when you look at the baseline, when you look at the market bottom price and then start doing the maths, the percentage is a lot higher, if that makes sense. But anyway, other than that, guys, I've got a long drive. It's going to get a bit more noisy right now. I'm driving a bit slow, but I've got to get on. So I hope this video was informative. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's grow this channel, because look, for me to come back to this channel full time and do this like 2-3 times, 5 times, maybe even 7 days a week, right, I need encouragement, and I don't think I've got that at the moment, because I've seen a lot of negativity. So for me, I'm just not one of those, like, look, I ain't got time for this nonsense, right? I don't come to YouTube to earn money or anything like this. This is not my bread and butter. This is not my job. So for me, I come here to inform friends and family, right? Of course, if other people also want some information, I'm happy to drop it here. This is what I'm doing right now. But if I'm going to get negativity, if I'm not going to get any positive results out of it, why would I do it, right? You know what I mean? I've got better things to do that gives me more positive results. So that's how I'm looking at it. But if we are going to grow this channel, then yeah, I'm happy to commit myself and take this even further. So other than that, like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on another one. Continue driving. See you later. Adios, my amigos.